Hello. Today we have someone coming to us from Los Angeles. We were just talking about LA before we started recording since Louise and I lived there for many years. Welcome, Gabriel. Happy to have you.
Hello, thank you for having me. Excited to get started with the podcast, and yeah, I've seen some of the episodes and love the space that you all are creating here.
Thank you. Well, and you have a great space too called MoFundamentals. So we'll put that in our show notes. But tell us your story and how, if you want to start with that or what you're doing, and then also your adoption story.
Yeah, of course. So MoFundamentals is the only foster adoptee led dance program in the nation. Um,
Good for
we
you.
we understood that, thank you, right? We came across that understanding after a long time of just trying to do the work. I come from foster care, adoption, and then trying to understand and process my own foster care journey. There wasn't a lot of spaces that were working, right? I was trying talk therapy, I was trying play therapy, um, I was trying everything from like super focused therapy at all levels, to recreation, to music, and kind of nothing was really helping me really dive into the process. Writing was, I think, the closest, and poetry. But then in high school, as I was leaving high school, um, tried out for my dance team. Don't know why. I had no dance experience. I had two left feet. My rhythm was horrible, but um, at that time, I was also carrying a lot of the frustration and the anger of foster care. And I told myself, hey, I have to release this some way. Dance seems like a place to do it. Um, and the rest is history. From there, dance really activated my brain in a different way. My emotions are able to be released in a safe space, held by my dance coach, and then held by my peers as well. And I was able to finally, I think, release and process the anger, the frustration, the grief from my foster care journey. And then once that happened for me, I was like, I need to share this with people. I need to share this as a tool. Like, this is so powerful. Nothing else has worked for me. Like, I know this will work for other people, and other adoptees and other foster youth. So I think within the year, I was able to start my first program. So I started my first program with a center called, it used to be called Hathaway Sycamores in Highland Park.
Hmm.
Um, and we piloted just my idea and the process of trying to understand the foster care journey through dance, through movement. The first program was more focused on break dancing, right? And fast forward to today, we do a lot of the similar things across three different programs, and I can share more about that later. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. Very much from my own experience, and then using the transformation journey to kind of duplicate it for other foster and adoptees across LA and beyond.
Amazing. How long have you been around now? How long have you had that program?
Yeah, we started. I started Mo Fundamentals back in 2013. Very
Oh,
much trying to understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
Um, Driven entirely by gut. Right, I was like, I want to just do this, try it out, um, and it's been a long 13 years. Is that it? 13
Yeah,
years.
that's a long time.
A
I'm
long
impressed.
13 years of doing it, part time, primarily volunteer, but now looking to scale and make a more lasting impact through the work.
That's great.
And it's gone through a lot of iterations, right? But I
Yeah.
think in the modern day, I'm getting my stride in terms of the programs that I want to do, the programs that work, and the spaces that work for foster and adoptees.
This is just so neat to hear about. It really is. We'll definitely highlight it on the podcast. And tell us about your story. You have a big story, I'm sure, to how you got here, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Let's see if I can go back. I was born in Chicago. I was 1 month or a couple of weeks shy of being born in Michoacan, Mexico.
Oh,
Um, I was growing up in Chicago with my two brothers, a younger sister. And then unfortunately, um, things happen, right? I lost my younger sister, and that is what was the catalyst to get into foster care. Me and my two brothers grew up in the foster care system in Chicago, Southside Cook County, and
So
then
you, excuse me, but you were with your family
mhm,
intact with your mother and father?
no, just my mother.
Just your mother, and you lost your
And
sister, and they took you kids and put you in foster care. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
and where were you in the birth order?
In the birth order, I was the second oldest.
Okay.
And so out of four, you were the second oldest. And
Yeah,
then your youngest was your sister, the youngest of all?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so your mother lost custody?
No, she passed away, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
my gosh.
My youngest sister passed away. It's been a long journey, right? To
I'm
actually
sure.
Hmm.
finally remember that that is part of what catapulted me into the frustration and the anger and holding on for it so long.
Oh,
I actually, I would say in the past year, 2 years is when I really have been trying to honor, that spirit that she was, and how it is a large part of my story into foster care. So that, yeah, that is part of the journey into foster care that we experience, and then trying to, or in the middle of the process, we went through all the different things, right? The emergency housing. We grew up seeing the bunk beds of all the other foster youth, and then from that going into a foster home. That was a pretty unique place because it was a older Latina grandma who had been raising foster youth since the 70s and 80s. So she knew exactly what she was doing. She was super, let's just say old school, right? She was
yeah.
old school in some of the ways that she was, but she was also very loving. I still have a picture of her on my altar over there.
Oh,
But she made sure that as we were seeing the journey of other foster youth come, go, and us three were staying, she tried her best to make us feel as much as home as possible.
and you were together, all
Yeah,
three of you. That's rare.
yeah,
That's, yeah.
yeah. So definitely rare. And then when I was around 9, 10 years old, that's when the adoption process started
Okay.
and kind of finalized.
So the adoption process started. Did you there was another family obviously that took you away from the old school grandma figure?
Yeah, so interesting. um, I've done the whole reconnection journey in my own family. I found out at the time of the adoption, uh, my foster mom's son actually wanted to adopt us. My biological mother wanted to regain custody. My younger brother's godmother wanted to adopt us back into the family, and then my biological father was also contacted, and my biological father's sister, who is my aunt, and that's who.
Wait, I'm sorry. So your biological mother, for some reason, I thought she had passed away. So she was still
Oh,
alive.
it was your
I was
sister.
Yeah, my
right.
youngest.
I thought it was both for
Me
some reason,
too.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But so she did lose custody, and then you went to foster care, and then later she wanted you back. Am I understanding that?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Were
yeah.
you, before you get into who adopted you, were you in touch with your mother through all of that? Or no?
No,
No.
complete. No, we had no idea where she was, and
No.
um, it reconnecting throughout the years. I found out that she was actually 10 minutes away from when we
Oh,
grew up in foster care, so she was super close the whole time. We had
wow.
no idea, um, and she also had no idea.
She had no idea either, and
Mhm.
that you were all together.
Yeah,
And how old were you when this adoption started?
yeah. So I was 9, 10 years old.
Oh, right. You said
Um,
this. I'm sorry.
Getting adopted from Chicago
Yeah.
to Los Angeles. So
Oh,
Oh,
we did,
how did that come about? That
Yeah, my
And do you want to share why your mom, I mean, did she lose custody or did she just kind of have such trauma from your sister's death that she just couldn't deal? Was it that sort of scenario?
she lost custody because of the passage of my younger sister.
Mm,
Um, and that she was a teen mom,
mm,
undocumented.
Yeah.
English was not her first language, so there was a lot. When I looked into the process, the court documents, for me, I think it was both circumstance of what happened and not supporting her in the
Of
unfortunate
course.
thing that happened. And back then, immigration was even harsher. So
Yeah.
I think it was those two combinations.
I'm so sorry for
Yeah.
her too. That's such a loss. I can't
hmm
imagine.
I know.
Yeah.
Painful. So you're at the grandma scenario, foster home, and the family from Los Angeles. How did that happen?
Yeah, so my aunt, right, from my
Mm-hmm.
dad's side, she actually wanted to adopt my oldest brother. Um, Social workers contacted her, said, "Hey, you have a full nephew," which was my older brother. Me and my younger brother, our fathers at that time were not known.
Okay.
Um, so social workers asked, "Do you want to adopt my older brother?" Um, and she said yes. Flew all three of us out. Um, they saw my older brother, they got to know him, and then the social worker also brought me and my younger brother into the home. And I vividly remember I was walking up, to the second floor of a one-bedroom apartment. Me and my younger brother walked in, and the social worker was like, "Also, he has these two siblings," and everyone's face kind of dropped. They were like,
Oh,
"Okay." And then the conversation was, do you want to adopt all three? Do you want to keep them together? What supports can we do to make it happen? So the social worker in her own way was like, how can we keep the brothers together? They've been together for so long. You're fully related to, you know, my oldest brother, um, and you're half related to the other two. And it was a journey, right? It was a
I'm
journey,
sure.
super hard for everyone involved. I obviously know so much about the story because I dove into my adoption files. I dove into the court cases. Um, I asked my adoptive family for their story. I asked my biological family for their story, and then I did the close file information
Yeah.
act search through the Midwest Adoption Agency in Chicago and got that as well. And I was dead set on like I need to understand my journey, how I got here, in order to know where I'm going and what I want to do in my life. And that's the journey.
What
And
did your, yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I just wanted to. So, um, one, I'm unclear as to how long you were in foster care from when your mother and your sister, and then,
Yeah,
and two, so your adoption was a kinship adoption. This was your biological aunt. Okay,
Half aunt.
yeah,
but
oh,
nonetheless, an
Right.
aunt. Yeah,
yeah,
biological
yes.
kinship.
Hmm. So back then, believed it was a half aunt.
Oh,
Fast forward to when I was 21, I took a DNA test and I found out she was my biological aunt. Me and my older brother had the same father, and we
Oh, okay.
didn't know that. The family didn't know that, so stuff resurfaced, of course, at that
Yeah.
time from the family, from the way that they initially viewed us to then how they viewed me, especially after finding out that I was related. A lot of reconciliation definitely had to happen, and um, yeah, that is a big thing that I also dove into and
Yeah.
made sure to paint the picture with my family, like, hey, this was messed up for everyone. This is where we should be going, and trying my best in all of this to make sense of it, but also create as much healing as I could for my own family. And the foster care journey for myself, I was in foster care from 3 years old. So foster care was my first memory. The first ever memory that I had was going into foster care, and then till 9, 10 years old. So six, 7 years I was in foster care.
Wow. The
Did you
first
have,
memory.
so no memories of your mother?
Yes, but only kind of around the time is what I.
Yeah.
Cellular memory, obviously, because we all have the cellular memory, but
Yeah,
actual cognitive memories.
yeah. I remember only two things from before going into foster care. I remember watching TV. It's seeing these DVDs all across me, my youngest brother on one bunk bed, my mom on the bottom with my older brother, um, watching a television, and
Hmm.
the other memory, just kind of general. I It's that thing I think that all adoptees say. It's like you can see kind of a face, but you can't remember the face. So I
Yeah.
remembered that, and then foster care, the separation was the major memory that I remember.
How sad, right? Your first big memory is a traumatic
Mhm.
experience, and from what you're saying, when you went to Los Angeles to your full aunt's house, who turned out to be your full aunt, who didn't know it, was she treating your older brother better than you and your little brother?
I think more so she was in shock, right? She was
Yeah.
like, I didn't sign up for this. Like
Yeah, three kids
I
is a lot.
cannot do I cannot do this. She had her own kids that were already older. Um, and she had gone through a lot. I respect the journey that my adoptive mom went
Yeah.
through, and the way that she, of course, treated us all differently, and called her in, right, to say, hey, you see that sometimes my adoptive siblings would get the better quality of some certain stuff, and we would get not the best quality, or not the highest quality of stuff. Why is that? I was like, why? And she always would say it's because it's so much, like it's so much, financially. They My adoptive mom, which is my aunt, my adoptive dad, which is my uncle, they both were undocumented, working, as a
Yeah.
seamstress, as a produce sorter, not making a big amount of money, but they were doing their best with what they could, and they were just stretched and stretched. So I
I'm
think
sure.
the the reality was, yes, we were treated differently, um, and me and my brothers learned to accept that, right? And of course, call it in when possible. And then as soon as we could, we're like, we're gonna get the higher quality stuff. Like we're gonna make sure that we can, be responsible for our well-being too. We learned intimately about, what kind of support there was for them.
Hmm.
Back then, it was like tooth and nail to get any support from, a foster care agency to support the transition. They were more so telling them, you have to get as close as possible to middle class living. And if you don't, then the social worker will make sure that it's reevaluated. So I think that constant pressure of them,
That's
it,
terrible.
they always, I think, internalize that. And of course, sometimes took it out on us, as anyone, right? They're flawed, but also tried their best in what they
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Well, it's a
So,
crazy journey. Yeah.
so there were how many of you living in that one bedroom apartment? So her kids were still there?
Yeah, we never lived in the one bedroom.
Oh,
They had to move to a home. They had to move to a, 2, 3 bedroom home, and then that's from there. It was, um, 5 siblings, including my adoptive family, that were living there, plus them. So there was 7 of us in the household, um, and then yeah, there was 7 of us in the household. Super. It's that thing of when you're so used to something, right? Me, my two brothers were so used to a specific family dynamic, and then we're trying to be introduced into another one. It was a clash, right? A clash of like, I don't know you, like, you're not
Yeah.
my family, like, that of course came up for us. Um, I remember we thought, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna run away? Are we gonna stay here? Me and my brothers had that conversation all the time. We didn't have the luxury of having a formal room, right? I always talk about it with people that know me. I grew up with three walls, so I was always the dining room, living room area was repurposed into kind of our corner of a room,
Oh,
um, and it was, yeah, very much. As I think about space, right? For us, of course, we were already um, dealing with a lot of energy of other foster youth in our foster home. But then once we moved, we lost at least one wall, um, and privacy was non-existent essentially for me and my two brothers. My family had to work hard for what they were trying to do for us, and they would wake up at, my adoptive dad would wake up at um, 11:30, something like that, midnight, already be out the door to go to work. And then my adoptive mom would wake up 4 in the morning, 5:30, 6, already off to the bus stop to go to work. So we were in this new way of living. And then, of course, my adoptive siblings are already older, so they would go to work, they would go to school, 7, 8 a.m. And then we obviously would have to go to work, or sorry, go to school as well. Um, and that in itself, I think, was something that we had to acclimate to. Um, just so much change, disruption, and then not understanding why we're here, right? And
yeah.
how much agency we had in it. I think me and my three brothers for a long time were like, we don't know um, how to process this, and what is it. And when we asked, I think in different ways, acting out, having fights with each other, having fights with our adoptive family, we always ask, like, how can we, in our own ways, how can we process this? Like, we need to understand this. Um, that was very, very difficult for all of us.
What
That's a
was the age
stress.
difference between you and your brothers?
Yeah, my older brother is, I think, 9 months older than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Boom, boom.
boom, boom.
And same
Uh,
father,
two
same
under
father.
two. Yeah, same
Yeah.
father. Um, yeah, so complicated. um, and my younger brother is a year and like 6 months.
So really
I'm
close.
I'm
Hmm.
curious, with only 9 months between you, why they assumed you had different fathers.
My mom gave me a different last name.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, so she
So,
gave me a different last name because she didn't know. My mother and my father both had various partners. My
okay.
father was married, so I
Oh,
wasn't one of his married kids, um, and he had a lot of kids.
yeah.
My mother, yeah, she, um, I think my older brother was obviously her first child, and then I was the second child.
Yeah.
Okay, that clears it.
It's
And
so,
then,
God, the loss for your mother to lose her three boys
Mhm.
and not know they're 10 minutes away. Now you're in Los Angeles. I have a question to go back. Did she know you got sent to Los Angeles?
Yes, so she eventually was connected with my adoptive family.
Okay.
Um, we didn't know, right?
Oh.
But there was a
No one
time.
told you. No one told you your mother knew where you were.
No, there was a time. Not until I want to say like 2 years after I remember being in elementary, going into middle school, and then I was told, "Hey, write a letter to Santa," and I was like, "Okay," and I was like, we're a little old to kind of believe in that, and we kind of know how it goes, and they're like, "No, we're gonna like write a specific letter to Santa," and we're like, "No, no, no," and they're like, "Okay, you're someone from a social worker is going to send you stuff, and it has to be specific stuff. So, ask for clothes, ask for toys, ask for whatever you want, right? And me and my two brothers wrote these letters to Santa. They went to my biological mom, and she ended up sending us a change of clothes. So a change of clothes, shoes, and then we were like, what is this really? Like we know this isn't something, through the social worker or through Santa, right? And then I think 2 years after, I must have been 14, 15. I started really, really questioning it. And I was like, I don't believe you. I was like, I don't believe anything of how I got here. I was like, I need to see my adoption files. I was like, I need to see it. I need to see the court cases. I want to read through it. I'm gonna like, I want to know. I need to know. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then eventually, my adoptive mom gave in and she's like, here, like read through it. I don't know what to tell you. Read through it. I was like, there's so many gaps in the method of how we were placed into foster care. So much missing details that when I started to point that out, um, my adoptive mom, I think, realized I was going to keep questioning, and then she's like, okay, here's what it's been like. Yeah, your biological mom has contacted us. We told her if she wants to come get you, like come, right? And she hasn't. And then, you know, some of those things that from my adoptive mom, she was like, your mother's not here for you, like all that. And then
Oof.
when I talked to my biological mother, I was like, hey, what was happening? And she was like, oh, I was incarcerated. Like she went to jail because of the foster care experience. Um, and then for her trying to get from Chicago to LA while being undocumented, teen mother, no access to kind of rebuilding life or addressing the grief after our foster care journey, obviously gave her a lot of mental blocks, right?
Of
And
course.
I think across the years she has always thought about it, considered it, asked my adoptive family to share the story more, and they finally, I think, when I was, from 14, 15 all the way to 18, started to share details here and there. Um, and then once I got the adoption files and started to retrace everything, I think by the time I was 20, I understood the whole picture of what had happened.
Were they not willing, your adoptive parents slash aunt and uncle, were they not willing to let her into your lives?
They were, I think, there was a couple things happening at the same time, right? My biological mother was like, I'm gonna get them back, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
Social worker pressure. My adoptive family knew that if anything happened that was close to assuming it would be unsafe for us, even my biological mother trying to reconnect, it meant that we potentially could be uh, placed somewhere else for our foster care adoption journey. And then my adoptive family also knew that my biological mother had a restraining order placed on her uh,
Oh.
that my biological mother didn't know. So my adoptive family, without telling her, was like, hey, like you could try it, but think about them, like think about their future. They're safe here. Like we don't know what else to tell you. They have their father here, or at least my older brother. Like he has his father here. What are you trying to do, right? Um,
Wait, when did your father and his father come into the picture?
my
Your
my
uncle
Oh,
is your
you're talking about your adoptive father.
uh my she was saying my biological father. So my biological father,
oh.
um, he actually came to my adoptive house almost
Oh.
every weekend.
Oh, he
Oh,
did.
Yeah,
That's
so he was
big.
there.
and
My
was he still married to the other person?
Yes,
Yeah,
to this day, still
to
married.
this day, but he would visit you.
Yes.
That's something. What did it give you? How did you feel about that? Like, did you embrace him?
I mean,
Well,
we
at the time, you didn't think he was your father, right?
correct. Yeah, we didn't
Oh,
Yeah.
know.
right,
So
right,
we didn't
right.
know. It was more so like that's my brother's dad. Like, he's cool. Like he's there. He was always very quiet. Um, and once I left my adoptive home and then came back for a little bit, and we took the DNA test, there was a lot of
Phew.
kind of releasing of the walls that he had up. And he told me, he's like, he's like during the process, um, I was told by the social workers that I am releasing my parental rights. I didn't sign off on them. He's like, I didn't want to sign off on them. He's like, but they told me if I don't sign off on them, then you all will never find another home. So they coerced him into
Oh,
releasing
yeah.
his parental rights. Same thing with my biological mother. And then because of that, he also, as he visited us, him and my adoptive family had an agreement that he wouldn't try to have the conversations with us.
Oh,
So he was there, he would make food, he would stay in the garage, he was doing the household chores, like Saturday chores, weekend chores. I think always in the way of, I'm here for my two or my one kid and then the other kids too. Um, but once we had the DNA test and we confirmed I was his kid, he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't, I didn't know. He's like, I didn't know if I would have known. I don't know. Maybe things would have been different. He's like, I'm sorry that I couldn't share more. We had, a couple lunches here and there. He was um, very much like that. And then also, um, sometimes would throw the blame to my biological mother. Um, and I always told him and my biological mother, I'm like, listen, I'm not here to be involved with the whole thing of what happened. I was like, the time is lost. I was like, and I grew up without knowing you. I was like, and the only way we can move is from this point in time forward. And I was like, for me, I can honor the person that you are, um, and also that you had your own family. Same
yeah.
thing with my mom. She was having different partners, um, and I can honor that, but I don't want to get into the weeds of like who said what, how things happen. I understand it fully enough,
Mhm.
and I know that um, within my family lineages, I retraced it like 3, 4 generations back, and um, uncovered that the story of separation, family separation, was existing 3, 4 generations
Generationally.
specifically in my family,
Hmm.
tracing back to when colonization was happening.
Mm.
So like my adoptive mom would have heart to hearts with her, and she was like, well, sorry I take out my frustrations on you sometimes. Like I didn't grow up with my mom. And that when she said that, I was like, what? Like you didn't? Like I had an understanding that you did, right? And she's like, I was raised with grandpa, and I'm here. Like I'm not depressed by it. So that type of thing of like, just move forward
Right.
was existing. And same thing with
Yeah.
my biological
Uh,
father, grew up in that dynamic as well.
your biological parents, so because your dad was in Los Angeles and your mom was in Chicago, so were they together in Mexico and then they went their separate
Yeah.
ways and he went to okay, okay.
Yep.
Just trying to clear understand the story. So, one
Yeah.
question before I want to get to when you got to your adoption records at 20. Um, your cousins slash adoptive siblings, how much older were they and were they resentful of you boys?
I think they were, I think, let me see, at least 6, 7 years.
Oh, much
My,
older.
yeah, 6, 7 years one, and then 8, 9 years the other one. And that's not including the half siblings, half cut, like in
Yeah, it's a lot.
family's big, family's
Yeah,
big. But yeah, that's definitely big enough of an age gap.
yeah.
Um, and then the second part, sorry, your question again
Oh,
was?
I wanted to know, so you're asking your adoptive mother all these questions, and she's just like, you know what, move on. Let's get past it. We all have our hardships, blah blah blah. You finally at 20 decide I'm digging in and I'm going to find all this out. So, and then when did you do the DNA and like, or were those all sort of in conjunction or
Yeah. So the you know what? I want to take a quick bio break and then we can get back to it if that's okay.
okay, repeat the question. So when you were 20 and started digging in, and then the DNA tests, were those all together, in conjunction?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I know I remember I think it was right after each other, right? I think at 20 was when everything was happening, right?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I had already been processing my foster care journey for a while, right? And I was like reading all the adoptee stories online, hearing about how a lot of people once they were 40 is when they started to really dive into it. And I was like, I can't wait until I'm 40. Like I have so
I'm
many
doing it
questions. I've
now.
been holding on to this for so long. I was like, I'm not going to wait till I'm 40. And for all the listeners out there, back then there was no, big social media stuff. It was all blog posts. So you had to read through the blog posts, read through these web pages,
Well, you had a lot more than we did, I'll tell you what.
yeah, yeah,
But there was
and
no like TikTok and
yeah,
groups and
nothing
all
like that.
that. No.
It was like right in the middle of the tech boom.
Yeah.
And the thing that had happened was I was visiting my adoptive family on a Saturday, just visiting them. They're like, "Hey, you need to come visit. You need to come visit."
You had moved
Cool.
out. You were working and moved out. Okay.
Yeah, I was moved out. I was going to college at UCLA,
Okay.
so I would come here and there to visit on the holidays. And this one Saturday, they were like, "Hey, you should really come. Like, come." And I was like, "Cool, whatever. I'll go. I don't have anything going on." I get there, and I see a young woman and my biological dad, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna go take a DNA test. This might be your sister." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I
Oh,
don't want." I was like, I was so like surprised by it that I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. I don't know. I was very overwhelmed with all the emotions, and I was like, I don't. I was like, I don't understand why this is the way that it's gonna happen. I was like, and after the initial kind of shock of it, I was like, I want the answer, but I'm not happy with how we're gonna get to the answer, and I don't know what the answer is gonna mean for us. But we
a
took
surprise DNA test. Okay, so it's you now know that your father is your father.
no, not yet. So we were
Oh, so even then
so
Well,
you're
why
like,
did he think this was your sister?
she
Like,
she
oh,
was
she did a DNA test.
no, so she was
Oh,
told by her mother that, and she asked, I think similar to me, she was on the same path of like, I don't look like the rest of the family
oh,
here.
she's a
What is the
quizzer.
situation? She was the only person in her set of siblings that had a different father. And she was on the journey. Her mother was like, I think this is your dad. She reached out to my biological dad and was like, hey, I think you're my dad. Can we figure it out? And she initiated that. So, uh, shout out to my sister in her own way, right? Half sister.
She's like finding the answers, and your dad's like, okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
she was like, let's take a DNA test. Um, my dad, I think either my dad or my adoptive mom were like, "Hey, this could be a good opportunity to see if Gabriel is your kid," because all of the mannerisms that my biological dad were coming out in me, like his cough, the way he would laugh, sniffles, like very specific things that only he did. Um, and they're like, two for one. Let's do it. I got there on Saturday. We went from Cypress Park, took the bus and the train to Chinatown. We, got there. We're like, what are we doing? And you would think it was gonna be a big process, right? But we get there, they do the swab, and they're like, cool, you'll find out in the mail. Bye. And we're like, uh, okay. And I think that too. I was like, is a little anticlimactic, and I was like, whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna go home. Um, and shortly after that, I I was telling either shortly after that or shortly before that, I can't remember which one. Um, I was already kind of trying to find my uh, biological mom. I had already requested the paperwork from the adoption agency. It was 3 years until I finally got them, but I was requesting them since I was 18 till I was 21. And I was like, I wonder if I can beat the adoption agency in retracing my own family,
Mm.
because I'm gonna figure it out. And then I told, I was going through a lot of stuff physically, emotionally. I was in college. I was less tied to making others happy and making myself happy and processing the
Mhm.
grief. And then I remember, I bought a plane ticket, bought a hotel. Um, it was like 3 weeks away. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to Chicago. I kept searching. I wasn't finding anything. And then I used the yellow pages. And I was like, I asked my adopted family, I was like, can you at least tell me my mom's first name? They did. And then I looked through the yellow pages and I was like, okay, I'm seeing 20 addresses with who this person is. I'm going to go knock on doors. And then I told my adopted family that. And I waited until it was the week before because I was like, there's going to be no discouraging. I'm going to tell them, like, hey, you have a week. If not, I'm going to be knocking on doors in Chicago. Good luck to me. Uh, and my adopted family within the week were like, okay, we'll reach out to who we think is your biological grandma from your mom's side in Mexico. I called her. She called my mom, and then it was either the day before or 2 days before we finally connected, and she's like, "Hi, I'm your
And
mom," and,
wow,
and then we met in person
you
the
flew there.
day, yeah, the day that I flew in. She was there, and yeah, we had the reconnection the same day that I flew in, and I was it, all the things, right? All the things. I was confused. I felt some release. Um, I think as a lot of adoptees also share, there was something in my mind that along my eyes, along my brain, the buzzing of trying to understand and not seeing someone that looks like you. Once I saw my biological mom, everything like flushed and cleared out of my system, and then all the tension here released. And I was like, this is so like such a surreal experience in my body. Um, and the fog, right, released from my body, and it was all of that complexity. And now I was like, cool, I'm in Chicago, made contact. I have no idea who this person is.
Where you weren't staying with her?
No, I wasn't staying with
Okay,
her.
okay.
I ended up booking a hotel really far from both her and my foster home, and I didn't know it.
You didn't know.
I thought it was an easier connection. So I was like 40 minutes away from them on train, um, and then I had two 2 weeks to kind of try to understand what happened, have conversation with her, and then begin to retrace the journey. And that's exactly what I did.
So, and then just want to, did your brothers then reconnect? I have a couple questions because I know we're getting towards the end. Did your brothers reconnect? And also, I really want to know if your brothers are part of MoFundamentals.
I know. I was thinking that too.
And are you still like, I know you can't go into everything over the last X amount of years, so maybe we figure out, like, find out where you are now with her and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah. So my brothers, very hard for them to open that up. They reconnected as well through text, kind of. That's it.
Oh,
Um,
that's it. You were
yeah,
kind of, you were the like one who has to know and go, and they're
mhm,
like,
yeah.
okay.
They did want to know, or they're like, I'm indifferent to it. Um, I think also that has a lot to do with the dance and the healing, right? And the processing.
Hmm.
Like I've
Yes.
really surrendered to the grief and the pain of foster care,
Yeah.
because I told myself I need to really feel this to move forward into creating good space and a future for myself.
It's good for
Um,
you. That is so not, that's just really, it's brave. Not a lot of people do that.
yeah, yeah, and I in that process, right? I tried to bring my brothers along for the ride. I tried to tell them about dance. I was like, hey, let's battle, boom, 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 right, and get this frustration out. And it doesn't resonate. It didn't resonate with them, and totally fine, right? Totally fine. They have a different way of being in the world, and then for more fundamentals, um, they're not involved either. Just me, really driven by the belief, right, of trying to process, trying to create the processing, holding the space for other foster and adoptees in Los Angeles. Today, the for me, what I've consistently done is I always put my own journey into my performances, right?
Yeah.
I put my own journey into my performances, into the way I relate with other foster and adoptee artists, the way that we honor the nuance of our stories without filtering it out, right? And making sure that when we are talking about our stories, we're not hyper focused on the trauma, but we're building that arc of, what is the journey? What is the nuance? Where is it that you want to go? Where is the resilience really of your experience
Hmm.
without being, toxically positive? But what is the resilience that you carry with yourself?
Yeah.
And how do you show up in space? And how do you want to dream of where you want to be in space? And I think for me, that is what has been carrying more fundamentals and resonating with so many people. That I very much focus on my story, share my story. I'm vulnerable with other foster and adoptees, and um, support them really in trying to process all of that and move forward. And also in the middle of it, trying to make sure that they're paid equitably. So for me, whenever I try
That's a
to,
big thing, right? That's not always the case.
yeah, for me, when I was trying to process my journey and, talking with people and even doing different interviews, documentary, things like that, it was always share your story. And then you were left with holding on to the grief, right? And for
Hmm.
me, I told myself, now I understand that dance is a really, really powerful tool to process, embody, release the emotions, dive into it, like get to that edge of the scary emotions, right, of their foster care journey, and then restructure the way that you have a relationship with those memories and the foster care journey, and then move forward right into a different way. Um, and part of that means, building financial stability for myself. Dance has been able to build some of that financial stability.
Mhm.
It's always been that safety net that has been missing. And then when it comes to the other foster and adoptees, I try to aim for $100 per hour for their dance work, right? Artist work, $20 per hour for the administrative time. So everything from emailing to attending meetings to even thinking and processing and writing about their story. That's something that I try to do, and I've been doing that since 2013 in very different ways, but always centered on how am I going to support the foster adoptee generation and move them forward. And part of that includes me. Uh,
Yeah.
and the conversations that I still have with my biological family um, are here and there, right? They're involved, here and there, but at the boundary that feels good for me and my family.
And that includes your mother.
Mother.
You, yeah, and she's still in Chicago.
Yeah, still in Chicago.
She
This has
has,
just been so fascinating, Gabrielle. Thank you.
I want to ask one thing. Has she seen you dance?
That's a funny story. She found my artist page somehow through Google, and she was like, "Is this you?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's me." I've sent her videos here and there,
Yeah.
and she was like, "You're gonna break a bone," and I was like, "I already did."
You're
I
gonna
was in
break a
foster care.
bone.
But yeah, it's very much like she knows that I'm an artist.
Is
Yeah.
she doing okay?
Yeah, I wondered.
Yeah, she has built to life again.
Good.
I have a half sister that
Yeah.
from her side. Um, she knows me, my wife, my daughter. So she's
Good.
as
But not
involved
your
as she can.
not your brothers though. She doesn't really
Yeah,
know.
not too much.
It's
No.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What a
Well,
story.
thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. It's just been fascinating. And please send us links. And we stay on for one more second
Mhm.
after we stop recording. Okay. Thank you so much. It's really been a
Incredible. I'm
great
just
story and what a journey. And
You're such an advocate for so
Yeah,
many, and it's like taking your grief and helping others. It's amazing,
yeah, of
Gabrielle.
course. Thank you both for the interview. I for a long time have gone back and forth with how I want to share my journey, when to
Yeah.
share it, and most recently, I think since becoming a father, right, I was like, how can I continue to release my history of foster care in a way that's supportive to be even more present and this is part of it, right? This is part of that journey. MoFundamentals is part of that journey, and honoring the people, the places that have been a part of the journey that are here or not here is also
Yeah.
part of it for me. And yeah, I'm very appreciative to share my story with the Making of Me
Thank you.
audience.
Oh,
thank you,
thank
Gabrielle. Really
you. Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.